Hello everyone and welcome to another video. I have to say that even though editing these videos takes time, it's been really helpful to help me focus and always having something in my mind to paint next. In this video I'm going to be painting 4 Rohan riders, which had a condition. As you can see, they were painted and quite battered. So I started by stripping them down and casting some of the missing parts. And then I decided that since I already had different riders with very similar positions, I decided to try to make some conversions. This is the first time that I was doing conversions, and also casting parts is still not something that I have mastered, so it might be a bit rough, but I'm quite happy. I think they made for a nice variety of poses. To avoid having the same positions of the horses, I played with the different halves of them to get 2 new positions. And for this one I got one of the back legs to have a rearing up position that I thought could look quite cool. For this first rider I just cut the spear and repositioned a bit the arm. This second one was holding a spear too, but I replaced it from a sword, and yeah, the whole arm is from one of the Rohan warriors that I had laying around. The third one is unmodified since I didn't have this rider in my previous batch. And finally, the last one, I just cut the arm and repositioned it to have a different angle for the sword. After giving the minis a zenithal prime, I started painting the horses, and I decided to paint the 4 of them with brown tonalities. Since I check, and most of the horses I think that appear on the movie are brown. I used burnt umber to paint the saddle and the different leather stripes on the horses. And at this point I also decided to coat all the wood elements on the riders with the same color. I painted with burnt red the clothing on the horses below their saddle. And I selected different tonalities for each horse's hair. At this point I had already highlighted the hair on the horse's body, but unfortunately I forgot to record that. For two of them I used black for the hair and also used the same black to paint their nails and to coat all the parts that would go with silver afterwards. At this point I painted the mouth of the horses. I used a magenta for the tongue, and then I base coated the teeth with Iraqi sand and then used ivory. I also used Iraqi sand to highlight the leather on the horses and to give it some scratches. Next, I painted the protections on their heads with chainmail. I then went and checked back some of the reference pictures that I had and saw that for most of the horses this was leather, so I might try that in the future too, but I think it looks nice with silver. With a mix of intense red and bright orange, I highlighted the clothing on their saddles. I finished them by painting the eyes and then I proceeded to paint the riders. To base coat their capes, I used military green. I painted part of the rider's clothing with burnt red as with the saddles. And then I used a mix of black and flat brown to paint the leather. To the parts that would later be painted with gold, I gave a base coat with beige brown. And then I used green stone to coat the rest of the clothing. Next, I painted the silver details with chainmail. And the golden parts with retributor armor. As per usual, I base coated the skin with beige red. And then I used a mix of military green and sky gray to highlight the green clothing. To highlight the leather parts, I applied flat brown in small lines to give a leathery look to it. And then I proceeded to paint and highlight the shields as I did in my previous video. After a wash with null oil over the silver metallics, I reapplied some of the chainmail to bring back the brightness. And at this point I had already glued some sand to the bases to let it dry over the night. So I finished the models by painting the eyes on the riders and went on to finish the bases. I simply gave them a coat of flat brown with a slight amount of black, and then dry brush Iraqi sand. And used as many variations of tufts that I considered to fit into the Rohan landscape to give some variation to the miniatures. So this is the end result. It's 4 new miniatures that I add to my collection. And yeah, I think the experience of doing conversions has been really fun. I enjoyed it a lot, and I have some new stuff planned for my next video, in which I will be converting and painting some Last Alliance men. And in the future I'm planning to do also Elendil and Isildur. And yeah, just subscribe if you want to be following this progress. And here's a last shot with all the Rohan riders that I have at the moment. Bye bye.